When 9 ranked teams lose, with 3 of those coming in the top 10 and 5 of those coming to unranked opponents, there's bound to be a lot of changes and a lot of shakeups in the polls. That was definitely the case for us here with our Gridiron Expert Top 25 heading into Week 11, heading into another beautiful week of college football. There were a lot of changes, guys. Only a handful of teams stayed put. We saw a lot of changes with some big risers and some big fallers and 3 newcomers to our Gridiron Expert Top 25 poll. That's exactly what we're here to break down today, guys. Breaking down every single team in our poll, in our rankings, explaining why they are ranked where they are, and explaining what led to these decisions, something that the College Football Playoff Committee can't really seem to do. They don't seem to have good explanations and good reasonings for their rankings. We're here to break it down, to explain, and keep in mind, guys, these rankings are based on a major set of criteria for us, but the biggest one, of course, is taking every factor into account. Margin of victory, entire resume, factors of the game. We don't just try to watch the games. We don't just look at the box score. We watch all the games. And we take it all into account, compile it into our rankings. Again, something that the playoff committee doesn't seem to do, despite having a 13-team group. They're not able to do it. So that's what we're here to break down today, guys. So welcome back again to the Gridiron Expert with our official Gridiron Expert Top 25 poll. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and dive into it today. Let's just dive in to our top 25. Try to get through it as quick as possible for you guys, for you viewers at home. But up at the top, guys, there's no change for us. Remember, this is not based on the playoff committee's polls. This is not based on the AP polls. It's based on what we do here. And we've had Georgia ranked at the number 1 for a while now. We have had the Bulldogs ranked number 1 for a while now. Even though Tennessee got the number 1 spot from the committee, we kept Georgia at number 1. Keep in mind, we do release these before the committee releases their set of rankings, but we felt that Georgia probably should have been 1 over the Volunteers, but we knew that the winner of that game was going to keep that spot anyways. And Georgia took down Tennessee in Athens 27-13. Georgia keeps the number 1 spot here. Tennessee, after that loss, dropped from 2nd to 5th in our Gridiron Expert rankings, but keep in mind the Volunteers, guys, should be just fine. Alabama losing to LSU was actually a really good thing if you're a Tennessee fan. If the Volunteers can win out and finish 11-1, they might not play for the SEC championship, but they have a very good chance to still make that Final Four. So all hope is not lost for Tennessee. Tennessee down to 5, Georgia at 1, Ohio State up to number 1, up to number 2, up 1 spot with their win over Northwestern. Again, some would say they only beat them by 14. That's not very impressive considering how bad Northwestern is. Go back and watch that game and tell me if you could have played in that. 40-mile-per-hour winds, extremely heavy rain. It was an ugly, sloppy game on both sides. Ohio State was able to withstand it, to overcome it, and they got the win over the Wildcats in Evanston. Michigan up a spot with their win over Rutgers, 52-17 on the road. Again, those teams kind of rising up because of Tennessee's loss to Georgia. TCU, though, is in our top 4 now. The Horned Frogs seeing a major jump, jumping up 4 spots from 8th to 4th, jumping, obviously, Tennessee. Jumping Oregon, who we were toying with. Do we put Oregon in our top 4, or do we put TCU in the top 4? Ultimately, we went with the Horned Frogs, guys. They're still undefeated. They're racking up the wins, and while they aren't necessarily impressive, they have won each of their last 3 games by 10 points to Kansas State, West Virginia, Texas Tech. And while they have trailed in those games, every single one of them, it is a bit of a concern, but what I'm seeing from TCU is resiliency, the ability to overcome. Despite trailing by 18 points, say, to Kansas State, despite trailing entering the 4th quarter against Texas Tech, they overcame those things and ended up coming back and winning by double digits. So I want to give a lot of credit to Sonny Dykes and the Horned Frogs for what they're doing there. We give TCU the spot there. Tough slate coming up, road games at Texas and a road game at Baylor in the next 2 weeks. TCU easily could slip up, but for right now, we have them at number 4 over Tennessee, over Oregon, who did take down Colorado 49-10. LSU was in our top 10, guys, all the way up to number 7, and how could you not? We had LSU at number 14 heading into last week's rankings, and we have to move them into the top 10 now. I mean, even though they have 2 losses, what a run it's been. One of those losses is to Tennessee. The other was all the way back at the season opener to Florida State. A lot has changed since then. You can't really judge too many teams for what happens super early in the season, just like we're not judging Oregon too much for what happened to them in their first loss against Georgia in the season opener. That's a long time ago. Completely different team. Things change. But LSU, guys, what a win over Alabama. 32-31 in overtime in Death Valley. This is an LSU team, guys, that despite having 2 losses could still make the college football playoff if they win out. They've beaten Alabama. They've defeated Ole Miss, their top 2 competitors in the West. If they win out, they win the SEC West. If you win the SEC championship, I think LSU's in the Final Four, guys. So watch out for the Tigers. They are in the top 10, up to number 7 in our rankings, up 7 spots. UCLA, because of the movement of teams ahead of them, is up 2 spots. Keep in mind, Clemson lost. Alabama lost. Those were teams ahead of UCLA. They have both dropped a little bit. So the Bruins are up 2 to number 8 following their win over Arizona State. Utah is up 2 to number 9. Some people will say, how is Utah so high? How do you have Utah number 9? Still a pretty decent and impressive resume. Only losses to Florida back in that season opener. Florida still not great, but not horrible. Got a road win at Texas A&M. I don't know how much that says, but lost to Florida only by 3. 10-point loss, I believe it was, to UCLA. UCLA still above Utah here. I still like this Utah team a lot, and they're still in the hunt for a Rose Bowl and a Pac-12 championship as well. So the Pac-12 getting some good representation here. 3 teams in the top 10. And then Alabama rounding out our top 10, dropping 3 spots. We had them at number 7 last week. We dropped them to number 10 following the loss to LSU. Some people will say, how can you have Alabama still in the top 10? Well, their 2 losses have come by a combined 4 points, 1 point to LSU, 3 points to Tennessee. Tennessee's number 5, LSU's number 7. Both are going to be top 10 in the playoff poll if you don't like our rankings. 4 combined points to those 2 teams, and both were on the road. Alabama's still a dang good football team. They were just unable to get out of their own way with so many penalties, and obviously ran into better teams on their home turf. I still like Alabama a lot. Are they going to win the SEC? Probably not. Even if they do, they're still not getting into the playoff, but I like the Crimson Tide. I still have them as a top 10 team. Could not justify dropping them out, especially when you look at their resume. So out for Alabama, down to 10, but not out of the top 10. Over in the second column here, USC up 2 to number 11. Still cannot put USC in the top 10, guys. How could you? Every team USC plays is significantly inferior to the Trojans, that they let them hang around. Just like California this last week, they only beat Cal 41-35. A California team that has struggled mightily on offense all year long, dropped 35 points on a Trojans team. And UCLA, while they're doing decently offensively, only 1 turnover on the year, give them credit for that, isn't doing enough to pull away. I blame more the defense than anything else. USC is going to be truly tested these next few weeks, whether they make the Pac-12 championship or not, but certainly when they play UCLA. That'll be the true test for them. They win that, maybe they finally get our respect and get into the top 10. Still a top 15 team, but I'm not putting them into the top 10 if they show me they can win against someone big, someone good, and actually not play a decent game and take care of these inferior opponents like they should. So 11th for USC. Clemson down to number 12, dropping 7 spots following their loss to Notre Dame. Lost to the Fighting Irish 35-14 on the road. Bad look for Clemson, a team that was number 4 in the playoff rankings and was number 5 in our rankings. Just laid an egg. Could not move the ball against that stingy Notre Dame defense, and DJ Uiagalelei turning in another poor performance just like he did against Syracuse. So Clemson, their playoff hopes are done, and they dropped from top 5 for us to outside the top 10, down to 12 for Clemson. The ACC slate going forward, no good. Miami, Louisville close the year with South Carolina. They'll probably play the ACC championship against probably North Carolina. That win not going to do enough for them either. So Clemson down to number 12. Nothing too much to brag about there. Ole Miss was on a bye week. They get the benefit from 2 spots just from movement ahead of them. So Ole Miss up 2 spots. They play Alabama this next week. So a huge game there, especially if LSU were to slip up somewhere down the road, whether it was to Arkansas or Texas A&M, they slip up there. The Alabama-Ole Miss game has some meaning for both programs. But Ole Miss to 13. Penn State up 2 to number 14, defeating Indiana 45-14. Again, a lot of these teams getting the benefit of the doubt, getting to move up just for teams that did lose ahead of them, or a team like LSU that moved up way more spots, things like that. So Illinois, we did have ranked high. They lost. Movement for the teams that were below them. So Penn State up 2 to 14. North Carolina survived Virginia, but up 2 spots because of some movement ahead of them. The Tar Heels only have 1 loss. What are they, 8-1? Only lost to Notre Dame, who is looking good right now, 6-3. So North Carolina up 2 spots. Texas was a big riser for us, moving up 8 spots. Texas moves up 8 spots following the road win at number 13 Kansas State, 34-27. Over 200 rushing yards from Bijan Robinson. The Texas defense came through clutch in the end, sacking Adrian Martinez, forcing the fumble, ending the game right then and there, preventing overtime. Give Texas some credit, guys. They had a slow start, but their losses have not been bad either. A narrow loss to Oklahoma State, narrow loss to Texas Tech without Quinn Ewers, 1 point loss to Alabama. This Texas team better than people realize and actually do have a shot to make the Big 12 championship game. That can be decided for them this upcoming Saturday when they take on TCU. Huge game between the Horned Frogs and the Longhorns. But Texas to 16. Kansas State, we just mentioned, lost to Texas. Head-to-head tiebreaker there. The exact same record across the board. So we're going to give the edge to Texas because they did win that head-to-head. Kansas State dropping 8 in our rankings down to number 17. We liked them a lot after that blowout win over Oklahoma State. They didn't lay an egg against Texas by any means, but we may have been a little too generous with our rankings. So Kansas State down to 17. Liberty up to 18, moving up 4 spots, jumping Tulane. Some people disagree with that, but I loved Liberty. Their big win over Arkansas, 21-19 on the road. We're leading the Razorbacks 21-3 at one point. Ended up stopping the Razorbacks on their potential game-tying 2-point conversion. Hugh Freeze has the Flames rolling. The Flames just keep getting higher and higher. This team is tough to stop and have a very good chance to finish the year at 11-1. But to go on the road as a 14-point underdog and win against an SEC team in their house on homecoming, is pretty dang impressive. It's a pretty impressive feat. So Liberty all the way up to 18 over Tulane, who stays in the same spot following their win over Tulsa. NC State up 3 spots following their win over number 21 Wake Forest, beating them 30-21. Impressive victory from M.J. Morris coming in. Down Devin Leary, they didn't like Jack Chambers, and Morris led them to that comeback victory over Virginia Tech and now has given them a win over Wake Forest. So huge win for NC State. They're in the top 20 now. Notre Dame cracks the top 25, and rightfully so. When you beat a top 4 team by 21 points, and you also have a win against Syracuse, who was a top 10 team top 20 team last week, and beat them by 17. And then you have a road win against North Carolina, who keeps winning. The resume is there for Notre Dame. The Clemson win, and the way they did it, just kind of icing on top, cherry on top. Notre Dame up to 21, sitting at 6-3. Huge win for Marcus Freeman. Illinois down 10 spots. They were the biggest faller in our rankings. We had the Fighting Illini all the way up at 12. I was super impressed with their defense. The offense with Chase Brown was clicking. And then they faced a Michigan State team in Champaign, so home field advantage for Illinois. Michigan State team with all this scandals going on from the beating that they took against Michigan and then gave to Michigan. After the game, suspended 8 or 9 players for this game. They were down a lot of key players, and Michigan State beat them in Champaign. So a bad loss for Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini. Still an unbelievable year. Still have a chance to clinch the West possibly next week as they face Purdue. But a big, bad loss to a bad Michigan State team. Illinois drops it at home. They dropped 10 spots to 22nd. UCF, we had at 25 in our rankings last week. They're now up 2 spots following their win over Memphis. Still in the hunt for an American championship and a New Year's Six bowl berth. Liberty, Tulane, UCF will be in the hunt for that. And then Washington and Baylor are our last 2 newcomers. Washington jumping into number 24 following their win over number 23 Oregon State, 24-21. And Baylor getting back-to-back wins over Oklahoma, beating the Sooners 38-35 on the road. Yes, neither team was ranked, but the Bears, I believe, are a lot more underrated and a lot better than people realize. Give Dave Aranda's squad some credit. Baylor's still in the Big 12 title hunt as well, and they can get some more clarity on that and a chance to improve on that in a few weeks when they take on TCU in Waco. So Baylor, I do like at 25. This team is severely underrated. 6-3 in the hunt for a Big 12 title. Big win on the road against the Sooners. Give Aranda and the Bears the credit and respect that they deserve. So there you go, guys. There is our GE Top 25 heading into Week 11. Let's hear your rankings down in the comments below. Let's hear from you. What do you think? Who's too high? Who's too low? Who should be ranked where? How do you think the playoff committee is going to rank their teams on Tuesday? We'll, of course, have analysis on that coming out later on in the week. But we got another huge week of college football, guys. November is the best month of college football by far, and we just saw that in Week 10, where 9 ranked teams went down. We got some clarity in some conferences. We got some clarity on some of the playoff races and on the national stage. We still have a lot more questions left to be answered here in this next few weeks. It's a lot of football left to be played, and we'll be here to break it down and watch it with you every step of the way. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country. So make sure you go check it out. Sign up for those today if you want some guaranteed winnings and money right in your pocket. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.